What if the biggest secret in all of human history has already been revealed, but almost nobody was paying attention? Today, we're going to dive into the claims of a documentary that says exactly that. It's a wild story of suppressed technology, of alien contact, and of a cover-up that has allegedly been shaping our world for the better part of a century.
So right out of the gate, the documentary we're exploring hits you with this staggering claim, supposedly from President Harry S. Truman himself. The whole idea here is that from the very beginning, the people at the top knew they were dealing with something, well, something not from around here. Okay, so what is the core premise? The film argues that a group of really high-level insiders finally decided enough is enough. They came forward risking their careers, their reputations, and maybe even more to expose what they call a massive and ongoing cover-up.
And the entire argument the film presents really pivots around one single event, a press conference that happened back in 2001. This is where 20 witnesses from the government, from the military, from major corporations all gathered to give sworn testimony about what they knew.
And look, the film makes a huge point to emphasize who these witnesses were. We're not talking about random people here. These were individuals with some serious credentials: an FAA division chief, an Air Force special agent, the head of Army intelligence, even 2 legendary American astronauts. This list is absolutely central to the documentary's claim of credibility.
So what did these people actually have to say? The film argues that it's not just about a few isolated stories. It's about a pattern of testimony and events that they claim have been systematically and intentionally suppressed for over 70 years. The documentary lays out this timeline to really give you a sense of the scale here. Of course, it starts with the infamous Roswell crash in '47, which is presented as ground zero for the cover-up. From there, it points to other military encounters, the official shutdown of public UFO investigations, and it all builds to that 2001 press conference, which is framed as this massive turning point.
The documentary's whole argument is pretty much summed up by this quote they used from a former Speaker of the House. It poses a really simple question. When you have this many credible, high-level people coming forward, how can the whole subject still be so easily dismissed?
But this is the big one, right? The elephant in the room. If any of this is true, a secret this big seems, well, impossible to keep. And the documentary actually spends a lot of its time trying to answer that exact question.
So how do they claim it works? The source describes this concept of a shadowy government that's operating in parallel to our elected one, a hidden structure that exists completely outside of any kind of constitutional oversight. And the mechanism for all this secrecy is allegedly something called Unacknowledged Special Access Projects, or USAPs. The film defines these as illegal, deep black programs that are so secret, they claim, that even the President of the United States can be denied access. And as for the funding, the documentary points to a real-world report that the Pentagon couldn't account for $2.3 trillion in transactions. The film then breaks down how this system supposedly works in practice. A president gets curious, starts asking questions, and is just stonewalled, told they don't have a need to know. The claim is that these projects are buried so deep inside private corporations and military contractors that the official chain of command is totally bypassed. Elected leaders, they're seen as nothing more than temporary employees.
The film presents this quote as one of its most damning pieces of evidence. This was the alleged response to the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The implication is just chilling. If an admiral at that level can be shut out, it suggests a power structure that's completely outside the established system.
So if a secret is being kept this tightly, you have to ask, why? What could possibly be so important? Well, according to the source, it's about technology that could fundamentally change our world, practically overnight.
The film presents this really powerful comparison of 2 potential worlds. On one side, you've got our world, dependent on fossil fuels, dealing with pollution and scarcity. And on the other, the world they claim is possible right now, one powered by clean, limitless energy that could wipe out poverty and end the very conflicts we fight over resources.
And this is backed up by another bombshell quote, this one attributed to the former head of Lockheed's legendary Skunk Works, the guys who build our most secret aircraft. The film presents this as a direct admission from the heart of the military-industrial complex that the technology for interstellar travel is already in our hands.
So the primary motive, according to the film, really just comes down to money and power. Think about it. If you introduce free energy technology, the entire multi-trillion-dollar oil, gas, and coal industry becomes worthless overnight. It would fundamentally reshape global power as we know it.
But the documentary doesn't stop there. It goes even further, making a truly startling claim that there's a long-term plan in place to use this secret against all of us by staging a fake alien threat. Now, to understand this next bit, we have to know what a false flag operation is. It's an old trick. It's when a government or a group stages an attack on itself, makes it look like someone else did it, and then uses that as an excuse to go to war or to grab more power.
The source for this incredible claim is an alleged deathbed confession from Wernher von Braun, the father of the Apollo program. He supposedly warned of a long-term strategy to unify the world by creating a series of enemies. First, it would be the Russians. Then, it would be terrorists. And when all else failed, the final card they would play is the alien threat.
To support this idea, the film points to quotes just like this one from General MacArthur. The argument is that the idea of an interplanetary war has been deliberately seeded into our culture for decades, almost as if to prepare us for that final card.
Ultimately, the documentary boils all this down to a fundamental choice. It frames this whole story not as a story about aliens, but as a story about the future of humanity itself.
And it presents two very clear paths. The path of secrecy, it argues, leads to endless conflict and environmental destruction. But the path of disclosure, well, that could open the door to a future of peace, clean energy, and unimaginable abundance.
So, the ultimate takeaway from the documentary is this. The solutions to our biggest problems aren't things we have to invent someday. They claim that technology's already here. It's just been locked away from us in those unacknowledged special access projects.
And the source material leaves us all with this final, provocative question. It asks us to really think. Is the reason we find these ideas so hard to believe because there's truly a lack of proof? Or is it because the implications are just too vast, too world-changing for us to even comprehend?